The sound of rushing water filled the house, the faint hiss of the shower masking the world outside their bedroom. Daniel Whitmore sat on the edge of the bed, half lost in the glow of the television, when Claire's phone vibrated beside him. A simple buzz and nothing unusual. They trusted each other, or at least he thought they did. The screen lit up again. A message preview appeared. "I can still taste you." For a moment, Daniel's brain refused to process it. The words felt misplaced, foreign. He picked up the phone, telling himself it had to be a prank or a wrong number. But then he saw the contact name, E, saved with a discreet heart symbol. He unlocked the phone, his pulse quickening. Message after message spilled out, each one colder and more intimate than the last. "Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you. He doesn't suspect a thing." Every sentence hit him like a hammer, stripping away the quiet illusion of safety his marriage had been built on. The woman he'd fallen asleep beside for 12 years, the one who said she'd love him until her last breath, had been whispering those same words to someone else. He read until his hands started trembling. The room felt smaller, suffocating. His reflection in the mirror caught his eye. A pale face twisted in disbelief, veins standing out across his neck. The sound of the shower suddenly felt louder, mocking. He wanted to burst in, demand the truth, watch her lie, then crumble. But something colder moved through him, curiosity mixed with vengeance. Instead, Daniel placed the phone back exactly where it had been. He straightened the duvet, turned off the television, and sat in silence. When Claire stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in her robe, her hair damp and skin glowing, he smiled softly and asked if she wanted tea. His voice didn't shake. Her eyes met his, calm and unsuspecting. That night, while she slept beside him, Daniel lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every word of those messages burned behind his eyes. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd find out who E was. And once he did, nothing in their quiet, perfect home would ever feel safe again. Rain fell like shattered glass against the windscreen, each drop reflecting the dull orange glow of the streetlights. Daniel Whitmore followed the black Audi 2 cars ahead, his wipers beating in rhythm with the rising pulse in his chest. Claire had told him she was meeting a colleague for a late presentation. Her voice had been steady, but he heard the fracture beneath it. The rain thickened as they left the main road and entered the quieter outskirts of Wexford. The shops disappeared, replaced by fields and old industrial lots. Daniel's headlights dimmed to a faint halo as he kept his distance. He didn't need to see her face to know where she was heading. The phone messages had mentioned a place called the Moorland Inn. When Claire's car finally turned off the road, his grip on the steering wheel tightened. The sign for the motel flickered weakly in the rain, its neon letters bleeding red into the darkness. He parked across the street, engine idling, the hum of the heater doing nothing to calm the cold spreading through his chest. A man stepped from the shadows, broad shoulders, confident stride, the kind of presence that filled the space without effort. Claire left her car, hesitating only for a second before walking toward him. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. She reached for his face, and he pulled her into an embrace that made Daniel's stomach twist. His breath fogged the window as he watched them kiss under the leaking motel sign. His hands trembled, knuckles whitening around the steering wheel. He wanted to open the door, to drag her away, to ask who this man was and what spell he had cast on her. But rage rooted him to the seat. The sound of his own heartbeat drowned the rain. They disappeared inside. The neon flickered again, as if mocking him. He stayed there for nearly an hour, staring at the door until it reopened. Claire left first, fixing her hair in the mirror, checking her lipstick. The man followed minutes later, glancing around before driving off into the wet night. Daniel switched off his headlights and waited until both were gone. Then he whispered into the empty car, his voice calm but hollow. "Now I've seen it." When he finally returned home, the bed smelled faintly of her perfume. He lay awake until dawn, the sound of rain merging with the memory of their kiss. And somewhere deep inside, something cold and patient began to wake. The morning light spilled through the kitchen blinds, soft and golden, the kind of light that usually promised peace. But for Daniel Whitmore, it only sharpened the cracks forming inside him. Claire hummed quietly as she buttered toast, her hair tied up neatly, the picture of normalcy. When she turned to him, Her lips curved into that familiar, soft smile. "Morning, love," she said, pouring herself coffee as if nothing in the world had changed. He returned the smile, calm and measured. "Morning. Late night?" She hesitated for half a second before answering. "Yes, the presentation ran long. We were stuck reviewing the numbers again." Daniel stirred his coffee slowly, the spoon clinking against the porcelain in a steady rhythm. "Did you manage to finish?" Her eyes flickered. "Mostly." Ethan handled the final report. The name hit him like a silent bullet. Ethan, the man from the motel, the one whose hands had been on her skin. Yet Daniel's tone remained even polite. "Good to know you've got reliable help." She smiled again, though the muscles in her face seemed tighter this time. He studied her like a detective studying a suspect. Every blink, every swallow, every pause and breath. Her laughter filled the kitchen, light and rehearsed, a sound that used to comfort him. Now it scraped against his nerves like sandpaper. When she kissed his cheek before leaving for work, he didn't flinch. He waited for the door to close, then turned off the kettle that had been hissing unnoticed on the stove. The house fell silent, heavy and cold. He took her empty cup to the sink and noticed a faint lipstick stain on the rim. He pressed his thumb against it until the color smeared away. Then he sat at the table, opened his laptop, and began what he called the record. Every message she sent, every call she made, every route she drove. He started tracking them all. A small notebook sat beside him, its first line written in neat block letters. "Trust is dead. Evidence lives." Outside, her car engine started. He watched her leave through the kitchen window, his reflection barely visible in the glass. His pulse steadied. The man he'd been yesterday was gone, buried beneath quiet purpose. By nightfall, Daniel had everything he needed to begin. The night had swallowed Wexford whole. Rain whispered against the windows as Daniel sat alone in the dim glow of his study, the only sound the quiet hum of his laptop. He had spent 3 nights digging through her messages, piecing together fragments until a name finally surfaced. Ethan Cole. A search pulled him up within seconds. Financial consultant, mid-30s, smiling wife, 2 children, a Labrador posed neatly at their feet. The kind of man who posted weekend photos in the countryside, pretending the world was kind. Daniel studied every pixel of those images. The warmth in Ethan's smile looked different now, dishonest, like a man confident that other people's lives existed for his taking. Daniel leaned closer to the screen, his reflection fractured in the glass. "You think you can steal her and keep your happy little family?" His voice was low, steady. "Let's see how steady your hands are when she isn't the only one keeping secrets." He created a new email, stripped of identifiers, then typed 5 words. "Does your wife know about her?" He hesitated only long enough to feel the weight of what he was about to do, then pressed send. A minute passed, then another. The message vanished into the void, leaving behind a silence that felt like static in the air. He shut the laptop and stared into the darkness. Somewhere in the distance, thunder cracked and the lights flickered. By morning, his phone buzzed with a new message. Claire had texted him cheerfully about dinner plans. He smiled faintly. She had no idea what kind of storm was already circling her. Later that night, Daniel crouched beside her car, the air heavy with mist and engine oil. His hands were steady as he fixed a magnetic tracker beneath the rear bumper, the small red light blinking once before disappearing. A passing car sent a spray of water across his coat, but he didn't move. He watched that faint red glow fade to black and whispered, "Now you can't hide from me." From the darkness, the world felt smaller, quieter, almost patient. Back inside, he sat by the window, watching the driveway until her headlights appeared. Claire stepped out, humming softly, unaware that every secret she carried would now have a witness. The screen of his phone lit up again. Ethan had replied. The preview read only, "Who is this?" Daniel smiled. The game had finally begun. Daniel Whitmore had spent the entire week preparing for it. Every sentence, every inflection, every ounce of rage was rehearsed in front of the mirror until he knew exactly how the truth would sound leaving his mouth. He imagined the way Claire's face would shift from surprise to terror. He even pictured Ethan's expression when the perfect mask cracked. But when the night came, the fury that had driven him began to turn into something colder. He waited in his car on the far end of the street, watching her leave the house again. Same perfume, same lie about a meeting. The routine had become ritual, and tonight he planned to end it. Rain drifted across the windscreen as he followed her, each droplet distorting the glow of the taillights ahead. She took the same route, through the quiet back roads and towards the outskirts. The wipers scraped back and forth in slow rhythm, like the ticking of a countdown. When she finally pulled into the Moorland Inn, Daniel parked across the road, his car swallowed by fog. Through the blur of rain, he saw her step into the open, umbrella trembling slightly as she approached the same man who had destroyed their home. Ethan wrapped an arm around her, confident and unashamed. Daniel's breath came sharp and shallow. His hand gripped the door handle, ready to swing it open, to end the game in one violent, inevitable moment. He could already hear the confrontation in his mind, her gasps, Ethan's excuses, the truth spilling out into the storm. But he didn't move. Something inside him refused to let go. Instead, he leaned back against the seat and watched. He realized that fear could wound deeper than rage ever could. He wanted her to sense it. The silence, the knowledge that he knew. When their silhouettes vanished into the motel room, Daniel switched off the car lights and waited. Minutes bled into an hour. His reflection in the rearview mirror looked unfamiliar now, paler, calmer, eyes stripped of warmth. At midnight, they emerged again, laughing under the rain. Claire's head rested briefly on Ethan's shoulder. The sight made Daniel's pulse slow to a steady beat. He started the engine, headlights still off, as they drove away. He whispered to the empty car, "You'll both remember tonight." The fog thickened as he followed them down the narrow lane, the world outside turning ghostly white. And somewhere between the silence and the rain, something inside Daniel finally broke. By dawn, the fog had lifted enough for a passing lorry driver to see it. A silver Volvo idling near the riverbank, its driver's door wide open, headlights still faintly glowing. The engine was cold, and the ground beneath it was slick with rain. Daniel Whitmore's phone sat on the passenger seat, screen cracked. A missed call notification flashing quietly in the dim morning light. Within hours, police tape stretched across the embankment, fluttering in the wind. Officers moved methodically, marking tire tracks, taking photographs, searching for any sign of a struggle. But the mud told no clear story, just a set of footprints that stopped near the water's edge, as if the river had swallowed him whole. When Claire arrived, her expression was one of practiced confusion. She wore a gray coat and no makeup, but her mascara had begun to smear, streaks of black tracing the shape of false grief. "He left last night," she told the constable, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "He said he needed air. He never came back." Detective Inspector Marianne Hensley watched her carefully from the other side of the barrier. Years on the job had trained her to spot the subtle fractures in a story, the pauses that lasted half a second too long, the way a person's eyes darted when the truth brushed too close. Claire repeated her statement twice, each time slightly altered. By the third, Hensley had written a note in her small black book. Inconsistent timeline. Check phone logs. Later that afternoon, the detective visited the Whitmore house. The place looked untouched. Bed made, breakfast dishes still in the sink. But the atmosphere carried a residue of unease, as if the air itself had memory. A single mug on the counter bore Daniel's fingerprint beside a faint lipstick stain. Hensley scrolled through his phone, the one recovered from the car. Recent searches. Unsent messages. Then something unusual. A series of transactions from Daniel's joint account, each made late at night to an unfamiliar recipient. By evening, she had traced the name Ethan Cole. It only grew stranger. Ethan had quit his job that same morning, citing family reasons. His wife claimed he had left for a business trip and hadn't returned home since. In the pubs of Wexford, whispers spread faster than fact. The faithful husband, the unfaithful wife, the river that kept its secrets. And as the rain returned, Detective Hensley stood by the riverbank, staring at the dark current moving beneath the bridge. Something told her Daniel hadn't simply walked away. Detective Inspector Marianne Hensley sat across from Ethan Cole in the gray-walled interview room of Wexford Police Station. A single strip light buzzed above them, throwing pale shadows across his nervous face. His hands shook slightly as he folded and refolded a paper tissue, eyes fixed on the table. You said you haven't seen Claire Whitmore for several days, Hensley began, her tone even but edged with quiet suspicion. Are you certain about that? Yes, Ethan replied quickly. I told you we ended things. I wanted nothing more to do with her. She said it was over too. Hensley's gaze didn't waver. And yet, she said, sliding a printed still across the table, this was taken 2 nights before her husband went missing. The photograph showed the car park of the Moorland Inn. Time-stamped 2347. Claire's vehicle was unmistakable. Ethan stared at it, throat tightening. She was alone, Hensley continued. No one else entered that room with her. No one left before midnight. So, Mr. Cole, tell me, what exactly did she mean when she said it was over? Ethan swallowed hard. She told me she'd handled it. That he knew. That I didn't have to worry anymore. Handled it, Hensley repeated, her pen pausing mid-note. What does that mean to you? He shook his head. I don't know. I thought she meant a separation. Or maybe he'd moved out. She sounded calm, colder than usual. The detective leaned forward. Did you believe her? Ethan's eyes flicked upward, meeting hers for the first time. No, Claire doesn't do calm. Not when it comes to control. Hensley studied him for a long moment, her instincts prickling. Every word, every tremor in his voice painted a picture of 2 people circling a secret they couldn't keep buried. She'd seen it before, the mix of love and fear that always ended in something irreversible. She stood, closing her notebook. If you think you've told me everything, I suggest you start reconsidering. Because right now, the only person who can confirm your story is the one woman who's been lying since the day he vanished. Ethan's voice cracked. You think she did it? Hensley turned toward the door. I think Daniel Whitmore didn't just disappear. I think someone made him vanish. As the door shut behind her, the light flickered once, casting Ethan's reflection against the mirrored glass. For the first time, he looked afraid of the woman he once loved. The rain returned in sheets that morning, turning the Wexford fields into channels of brown water. Detective Marianne Hensley stood beneath a flapping canopy as uniformed officers combed through the riverbank below. The flood had shifted overnight, dragging with it years of silt roots and secrets. Ma'am, an officer called, his voice half lost to the storm. You'll want to see this. Hensley descended the embankment, boots sinking into the mud. The constable pointed toward a splintered log lodged between rocks. Beneath it, glinting faintly through the grime, was a silver wristwatch. The cracked glass face still ticked weakly, waterlogged yet stubbornly alive. She knelt, brushing off the muck with her glove. The initials DW were engraved along the back. A breath caught in her throat. Bag it, she ordered, and get the forensics unit here now. Within hours, the scene grew crowded with police lights and camera flashes. Nearby, a second discovery deepened the chill that had settled over the investigation. Faint tire impressions curving into the soft soil, almost erased by rain. They matched the tread of Claire Whitmore's car. That afternoon, Claire sat in the same interrogation room where Ethan once trembled. Her composure had vanished. Her eyes were rimmed red, her hair unbrushed. Hensley placed the evidence bag on the table. Inside, the watch looked almost peaceful. Recognize it? The detective asked quietly. Claire's gaze faltered. It's Daniel's, she whispered, found by the river. Along with your tire marks. Claire's hands twitched in her lap. He followed me that night. I didn't mean to. Her voice broke into a sob. He was angry, shouting. I tried to drive away, but he grabbed the door. I swerved. He fell. The current took him. Hensley leaned closer. And Ethan? Was he there too? Claire froze. A silence heavy enough to crush the room settled between them. I don't know what you mean. You were seen together after he disappeared, Hensley pressed. Don't insult my intelligence. But Claire only stared at the watch, her reflection warped in the glass. It was an accident, she murmured. I just wanted it to stop. Outside, the rain lashed harder against the station windows. Hensley stood, leaving Claire trembling in the cold fluorescent light. As she walked down the corridor, her phone buzzed. The forensic report had arrived. Beneath the watch's strap, they'd found traces of blood not belonging to Daniel Whitmore. She stopped mid-step. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly before her. Her voice, calm and heavy, carried over the scene as thunder rolled beyond the walls. In Love and Lies, truth always surfaces, sometimes only when the river runs red.